Jay-Z is suing Tony Buzbee again. And yes, I mean again. Did we forget about the conspiracy and the extortion lawsuit that is filed in California? Yeah, Jay-Z is not quite done with this lawsuit where the 13-year-old accused Jay-Z and Diddy of R-wording her back in 2000 at the after party of the after party of the VMA show. Yeah, that case got dismissed, but Jay-Z is not quite done yet. We have talked about this a little bit on other streams and kind of teased the fact that we were going to be covering this new lawsuit that Jay-Z is filing against Tony Buzbee and the plaintiff, i.e. the 13-year-old girl at the time, for filing this lawsuit against them. And let me tell y'all, Jay-Z is suing them for malicious prosecution, abusive process, civil conspiracy, and defamation just against Jane Doe. And what I find interesting about the defamation is that there is going to be a little bit of argument of litigation privilege, and we're going to talk about why that doesn't apply here and how Jane Doe is going to be liable or could be liable for defamation, although she made these allegations in a lawsuit. Problem is, I'll give y'all a little hint, she's talking too much outside of the lawsuit, and we'll get a little bit deeper into that. So today we are going to be going over the newly filed lawsuit by Jay-Z against attorney Buzbee and Jane Doe. And then another attorney, I think his name is like Fortney or something, he's also pulled into this lawsuit for the nonsense that Jay-Z is alleging that they filed in that previous lawsuit against Diddy and Jay-Z. Now, you might say, well, why is he suing them? Because they withdrew the lawsuit, is dismissed with prejudice, so that means he didn't do it, right? No, it does not mean that. It does not look like there has been an agreement or a public apology or anything of that nature saying that I did not tell the truth. It looks like it was dismissed for prejudice for other reasons, which again can put Tony Buzbee on the line for malpractice. A lot of the allegations in this lawsuit, even if Jay-Z ends up dropping it and Jane Doe gives him a public apology, it is putting Tony Buzbee on the line for Jane Doe to have a malpractice lawsuit ready to go against him, and for Tony Buzbee to be liable, maybe to get his bar license removed if the allegations that Jay-Z is making against him is true. So let's go ahead and jump right into the complaint. And I'm gonna tell y'all, like, these attorneys came with the creative writing this time. So we are super excited to get into it. And let's have Bossy B bring us in. All right, y'all. So y'all know we are live. If you are here live, make sure you are dropping in the chat section what you think about this new lawsuit that Jay-Z is filing against Tony Buzbee. If you're watching on the replay, make sure you are dropping it in the comments what you think about this lawsuit. And I am actually going to release a poll for the people that are here live of whether you think that Jay-Z just needs to let this go. Remember, he has filed an extortion lawsuit in California. I need to double check whether that one is still pending. That one's against Tony Buzbee for before the lawsuit was actually naming Jay-Z in it. And then we had the actual lawsuit that was filed in New York federal court. And now we are in Alabama federal court suing Tony Buzbee and his client and another attorney and Tony Buzbee's whole law firm. So the poll that we have today is, should Jay-Z let the lawsuit go? The options that y'all are going to have is yes, he needs to move on already. No, he needs to clear his name. And I don't care. The drama is juicy. So y'all let me know what y'all think, what Jay-Z should do with all of this drama going on. So while I let that poll marinate, make sure y'all are voting on that. If you're watching on the replay, just go ahead and drop in the comment section what you think the answer should be, and then we'll get to the poll towards the end of the live stream. And again, if you're here live, your chat will be read at the end of the live stream, so long as it has to do with the lawsuit that we are covering. So let's go ahead and have the actual screen shared, Bree, so that we can actually cover what we are looking to cover here. So we're going to go ahead and share that, add that to the screen, and we're going to go ahead and make it bigger so the people can see it. We have Sean Corey Carter suing Anthony Buzbee, David Fortney, Anthony G. Buzbee LP, and Jane Doe. The one thing that I found interesting about this lawsuit is that Jay-Z was nice enough to leave Jane Doe anonymously. He actually asked for leave of the court and said that he would like to keep her anonymous because she has a lot of issues. He's claiming that she has some mental health issues, and he's concerned that if the media finds out her identity, then they may kind of harass her and make her have more issues than she really needs to be having right now. And let me tell you how Jay-Z gives all of her business, all of her business in here. And it sounds like this lady is going through a lot and potentially could have been manipulated by Buzbee in filing these lawsuits. Maybe, we don't know, maybe she was the mastermind according to Jay-Z, or maybe Buzbee was the mastermind. We don't know. Let's find out in this, like I said, eloquently written document, complaint against Buzbee and the law firm and the plaintiff. So let's go ahead, and I know I just said let's go ahead, but let's actually go ahead and dive into it. He starts off with false, malicious, strategically and tactically calculated in time to inflict maximum pain and suffering on Mr. Carter, and in conspiracy with multiple attorneys, including defendants Anthony Buzbee and David Fortney, who, like her, were soullessly motivated by greed and abject disregard of the truth and the most fundamental precepts of human decency. So that is a strong, strong opening. Is it a lot of words? Yes. Are they big words? Yes. Does it get the point across? I think so. I think so. Let me know what y'all think. These are the only truthful and fair descriptions of Jane Doe's and her lawyer's malevolent effort to assassinate the impeccable and lifetime earned character of Sean Corey Carter. Like, are we stroking Jay-Z's ego or what? Like, what are we doing here? Okay, let's go on. Who is professionally known as Jay-Z, but more importantly is known as dad and husband and son, and a human being who did nothing to deserve or elicit the wanton, depraved attack that Jane Doe, in conspiracy with her lawyers, launched to extort Mr. Carter beginning on November 5th, 2024 through a menacing private demand letter. So like I said, eloquent writing. Lovely writing that they have going forward. Doe and her lawyers, Anthony Buzbee, David Fortney, and Anthony G. Buzbee LP, doing business as the Buzbee law firm, collectively referred to here as the defendants, then brought before the world an in-court complaint that impossibility and indeed absurdity of which was surpassed only by its vile malevolence. They like the word malevolence. They really like that word in this one. In a desperate attempt to leverage Mr. Carter into an extortionate payout, which these malicious actors presented as the only path for Mr. Carter to prevent the public prosecution of a lawsuit by Doe. When their initial extortionate demand letter failed to yield the financial windfall they saw, and after Doe told Buzbee, with whom she had never spoken before, the demand letter was drafted and sent, that Mr. Carter did not sexually assault her, Buzbee pushed her towards going forward with the false story against Mr. Carter to make the case better and to get them, the lawyer and her, more money. Specifically, Buzbee brought Jay-Z into it. So if you guys recall the whole timeline of events, this lawsuit was filed against Diddy. It listed an anonymous celebrity A and celebrity B. Celebrity A being a male celebrity who SA'd the girl along with Diddy, and then celebrity B being a female celebrity who just watched and who was never named in any of the lawsuits, not the amended complaint or the original complaint. And then you have the demand letter going to Jay-Z saying, hey, if you do not give us some kind of money, we are going to name you in the lawsuit. Jay-Z then files his own lawsuit for the extortion from the demand letter. And then Jay-Z is named in the amended complaint as being celebrity A. And then Jay-Z files a bunch of motions back and forth, gets cussed out by the court by filing too many motions and not doing it properly in New York federal court. And then we get a dismissal of the case after Jay-Z properly filed a motion to dismiss, among several reasons, but one of which being that the statute of limitations is over and she can't not revive it by arguing a different statute. There was some mess about Buzbee not actually being admitted to the court. So a whole bunch of stuff happened. And then the case was withdrawn with prejudice, or dismissed with prejudice, but with no explanation why. And Jay-Z is going to give us a little bit of information about the explanation why this was dismissed. So let's go on with the wonderful writing that the attorney has here. So Buzbee then went forward with naming Mr. Carter with full knowledge by him, as imparted to him by Doe, that Mr. Carter had never assaulted Doe, and that Doe's entire story as it related to Mr. Carter was completely fabricated. As you see, he's not defending Diddy. So does he think Diddy did it? That's what I would like to know. I would like to know that. Doe has now voluntarily admitted directly to representatives of Mr. Carter that the story brought before the world in the court and on global television was just that, a false, malicious story. She has admitted that Mr. Carter did not assault her, and that indeed it was Buzbee himself whom she met for the first time at a coffee shop in Houston on the day of her maliciously false NBC News interview, which is discussed in detail below, who pushed her to go forward with the false narrative of the assault by Mr. Carter in order to leverage a maximum payday. To compound this egregious harm, just last Friday, Buzbee's and Fortney's co-counsel, a prominent New York attorney, is the now dismissed false action against Mr. Carter, threatened Mr. Carter's counsel to double down with yet another false public statement by Doe if Mr. Carter publicly revealed her admissions and Buzbee's and Fortney's misdeeds in Carter's pending California lawsuit against Buzbee. And again, I need to check if the California one is still pending. This one, I guess it doesn't have to be pending because this one is different. He's suing for other things. Remember, the one in California is for extortion. This one is for defamation, malicious prosecution, abusive process, and civil conspiracy. So he has two lawsuits going on right now. The California one is against Buzbee and his law firm, and this one is against Buzbee, his law firm, Fortney, and the original plaintiff here. So number 8, fortunately and clearly unexpected from the perspective of Doe, Buzbee, and Fortney, were met with nothing but righteous resolve at every turn by Mr. Carter. He stood steadfast, publicly decried the lies being put forth against him, and beat the evil conspiracy among malicious Doe and her malevolent, soulless lawyers, driving them back into the shadows from which they came, resulting in the voluntary dismissal with prejudice, without settlement, of their false and malicious complaint on February 14, 2025. Now, that is important because it was voluntarily dismissed with prejudice, meaning that Jane Doe cannot bring this claim back to court. She's basically saying, hey, I don't have a case. We're dismissing it with prejudice. But what Jay-Z has let us know was that there was no settlement. And settlement does not necessarily need to be a payout or anything of that nature. He could have got an agreement for Jane Doe to admit that the allegations were false publicly and to basically recant her statement. But instead, it looks like Buzbee and his team and Jane Doe actually withdrew the lawsuit without really having any negotiations with Jay-Z. I think a part of it is because of the motion to dismiss that Jay-Z filed, and that the statute of limitations had already expired, and her statute of limitations was not revived by the Adult Survivors so the Adult Survivors Act. I don't remember all the words to it right now, but I'm thinking that's why they withdrew it with prejudice, along with some issues with Buzbee's admission to practice in front of the court that he was filing the lawsuit in. So I don't think it was actually withdrew based on anything that had to do with the fact. So while Jay-Z is saying that because I was innocent and they withdrew it and I didn't even have to negotiate it because they know I was innocent, he also indicates that there was no settlement. So I highly doubt it was because they are basically conceding that he was innocent. I think it was based on a technicality. So let's go on. Mr. Carter does not commence this action lightly. Following Jane Doe's admission that she fabricated her claims against Mr. Carter, and remember, this is not in a lawsuit. She is not admitting this in a lawsuit. He's basically had an investigator talk to her, and that's who she admitted it to. I could not find the actual recording of her admitting it. I saw that it was up for a while, but now I can't seem to find it. So we're not going to be listening to that on here, but it was basically a private interview where she admitted that the lawsuit or that Buzbee was the one pushing her to name Jay-Z in the lawsuit. So let's go on. Following Jane Doe's admission that she fabricated her claims against Mr. Carter, her lawyers have continued to seek to hide this reality, including through further extortionate threats and demands by Buzbee, Fortney, and their New York co-counsel on February 28th. Even after this, Mr. Carter does not expose his malicious and wrongful accuser's identity in this complaint, seeking to maintain her anonymity as Doe. But the extortion and abuse of Mr. Carter by Doe and her lawyers must stop. Therefore, Mr. Carter brings this lawsuit to hold Doe accountable for her willful defamation per se and her malicious prosecution of knowingly false allegations against Mr. Carter that Doe and her co-conspirator attorneys have falsely and maliciously peddled. So we're going to get into a little bit more of the details of what Jay-Z is claiming actually happened and why he's bringing this lawsuit in order to clear his name. Because like I said, they withdrew the lawsuit, but there was no clearing of his name. So in order for Jay-Z to clear his name, he needs to succeed on this defamation claim, on this malicious prosecution claim, on the abusive process, and the civil conspiracy in order for him to clear his name. Because just because they withdrew the lawsuit does not necessarily mean that he is innocent. And y'all can let me know, do you think he is innocent? I see some of y'all are voting in the chat. If y'all are watching live, make sure you are hitting or letting us know your thoughts about whether Jay-Z should let this lawsuit go or whether he should continue on and clear his name. So let's go on to the allegations that's common to everyone in the lawsuit. So Doe, after hiring the Buzbee law firm, Doe falsely accuses Mr. Carter of SA in a written correspondence, court filing, and on a global television. Doe appears to be suffering from personal and financial hardship. And so, like I said, Jay-Z is putting all this girl's information out there, allegedly. Remember, we're in litigation privilege. He is naming this in the lawsuit. So he is saying this lady got some problems. So let's see what problems Jay-Z is saying she's having. Doe appears to be suffering from personal and financial hardship. She lost custody of her children, and her parents, who on information and belief support Doe, recently filed for bankruptcy protection. Desperate to obtain a payday, Doe hired Buzbee law firm, which has a long history of whipping up a media frenzy with vague and sensational claims against public figures to extort payments from Mr. Carter under the threat of devastating harm to his reputation. As discussed below, Doe first attempted to extort Mr. Carter through an extortionate demand letter and an anonymous lawsuit, both from Buzbee. When Mr. Carter refused to capitulate to Doe's baseless demands, Doe doubled down by using the justice system to attempt to ruin him. Mr. Carter, by formally naming Mr. Carter in a complaint, making horrific false allegations. And when that also failed, Doe resorted to defaming Mr. Carter on global television. A simple Google or other public record search of Doe by Buzbee and Fortney would have cast doubt on her credibility by revealing that, among other things, less than 90 days before sending the demand letter, she had been in court on mental health-related issues in connection with her second-degree assault charge, geez Louise, and had her bail revoked from failing a drug test. She has several mental health disorders and take multiple medications, according to testimony from her psychiatrist laid bare in public court records. And she made 3 other sexual assault allegations, which were either dropped or dismissed by courts. Now, one thing about suing a celebrity is he got the money. He got the money to find out everything about you. And if you got criminal cases where your psychiatrist or your mental health professional is talking, probably to bolster your side of things, it's not going to go well. So that was one of the reasons why he wanted to keep her anonymous, because he said clearly she has some mental health things going on based on public records that he got from criminal cases that she had pending against her. So yeah, I think they're going to want to settle this one quickly. I think they are. So let's move on. Doe sues Sean Combs and entities 1 through 10, alleging that she was as aide at an after party following the MTV Music Video Awards. I'm not going to read that. We already know what kind of happened here. She's claiming she was 13 years old at the time. A friend dropped her off at Radio City so that she can try to get in the VMA. She couldn't get in, and allegedly Diddy's limo driver basically said that she should come to his house. She offered, when she got to his house, she said it was like 20 minutes to get there. They offered her a drink. She felt woozy, and then at that point, that's when Diddy and an anonymous celebrity SA'd her while a female celebrity watched her. This is before she is actually naming Jay-Z in the lawsuit. And then he goes on to say, Doe sends Mr. Carter an extortionate letter falsely accusing him of SA. A few weeks after filing her complaint, Doe, through Buzbee, sent Mr. Carter an extortionate letter dated November 5, 2024, containing false allegations of vile conduct by Mr. Carter. Some of the allegations in Doe's letter were from the public complaint Doe filed against Combs and the Does 1 through 10, with obvious implications being that she would amend her complaint to add Mr. Carter if he refused to pay. Doe threatened to take a different course if Mr. Carter did not Doe threatened to take a different course if Mr. Carter did not commit to a confidential mediation to resolve the delicate and important matter by the deadline of November 19, 2024, giving Mr. Carter only a 2-week window before she would go public with her false allegations. To avoid public and criminal exposure, Buzbee stated that his client wants something of substance by way of a settlement. Give her some money, essentially, is what he wanted, or they were going to name him. However, Doe had already sued Mr. Carter, albeit of the Does 1 through 10. Doe's plan was thus clear. She was demanding that Mr. Carter either pay something of substance to stop her from making public the wildly false allegations of SA that would subject Mr. Carter to opprobrium and irreparably harm his reputation, family, career, and livelihood, or endure the financial and personal ruin. Doe's statements and correspondence made clear that the immediate and extensive threat of exposure if Carter failed to pay. So if you don't pay up, we are going to name you in the lawsuit. Next step that he is saying having, Doe amends her lawsuit to falsely allege that Mr. Carter SA'd her. Like I said, on November 18th, they go ahead and on December 8th, they go ahead and add Jay-Z to the lawsuit, making the same allegations that she was 13. A friend dropped her off. She went to Diddy's house. She was drugged, and Diddy and Jay-Z are the ones that SA'd her with an unnamed celebrity who basically watched everything go down. And then they go on to say, then Doe goes on global television, falsely accusing Mr. Carter of SA. On December 13, 2024, NBC News broadcasted portions of an exclusive interview of Doe, which was conducted with Fortney by her side. NBC News honored Doe's request to mask her identity. NBC News published a story excerpting interview it held with Doe. During the interview, which was set up by Buzbee, was given on a voluntary basis and in the presence of Fortney, Doe lied about Carter to a global television audience. And so, like I said, we have defamation pending against Jane Doe only. And the reason why we have defamation pending against Jane Doe, although she filed a lawsuit, which we all know would normally be protected by litigation privilege, because, they have to be able to get things out there without being sued for defamation if they got something a little bit wrong, right? But since Jane Doe decided that she was going to do public interviews, that is not protected by litigation privilege. It's not done on court record. It's not done in court filings. It is an out-of-court statement that she is making and not protected by the litigation privilege. And that is why he can sue her for defamation, which if she didn't do the interview, she would be protected from being sued for defamation because she would have had the litigation privilege in the statements that she was making in the filing. So let's go on. In addition to attempting to explain the impossible, how she would, as a 13-year-old from upstate New York, Wound up in Manhattan at a private VMAs party with countless celebrities, Doe told NBC News how she spoke with musicians Benji Madden and his brother at the after party. She recalled talking to Benji Madden about his tattoo of the Last Supper because she has a religious background. So it was something to talk about. Doe repeated her claims that while at the after party, she had a drink that made her feel woozy, after which Combs and Mr. Carter took turns R-wording her while an unidentified female celebrity watched. Doe told NBC that following the alleged SA, she found her way to a gas station where she called her father, who picked her up and drove her home. She states that her father did not ask her what happened, what she did, or where she was. Instead, they rode home in silence for 5 hours and 47 minutes, basically not saying anything, and how his daughter ended up that far away from home. Jay-Z goes on to say, all of those allegations against Mr. Carter were demonstrably false. Doe's allegations about Mr. Carter were false and defamatory, and her mendacity is clear, including the reporters at NBC's News. First, although Doe stated that the assault occurred at a residence, Mr. Carter was at no such residence. Indeed, NBC News located photos of Mr. Carter from the evening showing him at a party at a commercial location that is now closed. That is the now closed Lotus nightclub in New York City. Of course, a private nightclub cannot be mistaken for a large white residence with a gated U-shaped driveway that included a large living room foyer, a hallway containing several rooms off of it, and a bedroom. Even Buzbee admitted to NBC that Doe does not claim that the assault occurred at Lotus nightclub. Second, Doe told NBC that she spent 20 minutes in the limo before arriving at the residence. However, when pressed about these details in a follow-up interview with NBC, Doe admitted that she did not know where she was going or even how long the drive took. Worse, she conceded to NBC that she guessed about the length of time and the trip had taken in the lawsuit. So she's already admitting that she's making some mistakes and she's guessing. Third, as to her description of a supposed conversation with Benji Madden during the interview, with NBC News, a representative for Madden confirmed that NBC News that neither he nor his brother Joel attended the 2000 VMAs and that they and their band Good Charlotte were on tour in the Midwest at that time. When confronted with this evidence, she conceded she made a mistake in identifying them and that not all the faces at the after party were clear. But it would be different if she just named those celebrities. Like, I talked to them, but you gave detail of what you talked to them about and why you talked to them about. So if they have those tattoos, are there other celebrities that you're saying had those tattoos? The thing about accusing celebrities of doing something, there is going to be a lot of evidence around the internet, even if it's a long time ago, or around the internet, or at least around like their business records, for them to be like, hey, no, we didn't go into the VMA. I vividly remember not going to the VMAs that year because we were actually on tour over here. Like, maybe if it was a private person, they wouldn't have all of those details. But when you're accusing celebrities, they're going to have those kind of details available. And in her instance, some of the stuff was available online. Like, did y'all not do your research before you filed this lawsuit? Fourth thing that she lied about. Fourth, regarding her long pre-dawn drive home with her father, Doe's father told NBC News that he does not recall picking up Doe, which unsurprisingly would have been something that would definitely stick in his mind. He said that he learned of the alleged assault when Doe was interviewed by NBC News in December, and that he did remember once picking Doe up in the middle of the night, but it was a local drive based on their address in Rochester, New York. Doe's father would have driven at least 5 hours and 47 minutes to pick her up. And there are countless other falsehoods in Doe's allegations. For instance, despite alleging that it took 20 minutes to get from Radio City Music Hall to the after party, there was no houses matching Doe's description within 20 minutes of Radio City Music Hall. And although she implies that Combs hosted the after party, none of Combs' properties matched Doe's description of the location of the after party. Moreover, Doe alleges that after the VMAs began, much of the crowd moved inside, but Doe, without a ticket, remained outside with others and watched the VMAs on a jumbotron. But the broadcast of the VMAs conclusively shows that there was no jumbotron. Again, something that she could find on the internet if she's going to name a year, right? Oh gosh. Indeed, the producer of the VMAs and the NYPD also confirmed that there were no jumbotrons since the permit application was denied. All stuff that could have been figured out before the lawsuit was filed. Even if Doe was outside the VMAs, as she claimed, she could not have approached celebrity limousines because they were only outside Radio City Music Hall briefly for celebrities' pickup and drop off. In any event, the celebrity limousines were separated from the fans by police barricades, as publicly available video of the event clearly shows. NBC confronted Doe regarding the substantial contradictory evidence, which it had uncovered in less than a week after conducting the initial interview in a follow-up phone interview. In response, Doe admitted that she made some mistakes. She also disavowed the allegations in her complaint about the location of the alleged incident and admitted that she was guessing. So, guessing and mistakes, not good when it comes to filing a lawsuit. You got to be sure, because you're protected by this litigation privilege. So you at least need to be close to sure of what you're alleging here. But Doe did not drop her baseless complaint. She instead insisted on moving forward, including by offering to submit to a polygraph, which never occurred or in any event has never seen the light of day. So polygraph, and she didn't offer to do a polygraph. It was actually Buzbee that said, my client will do a polygraph, and then never went forward with it. Not that if she did a polygraph and passed, it would mean she's telling the truth, but that was an option. So let's get into Doe. After all this inconsistency that went on with NBC, let's get into the lawsuit still going forward. Because remember, that was in December. The lawsuit didn't get dismissed until the end of February. And y'all remember that there is a poll. So let me know your thoughts. Should Jay-Z let this go? Should he clear his name, or do we just not care and the details are juicy? Well, let us know. Make sure you're voting in the poll. Okay, so Doe waited months before dismissing her false complaint and did so after being lied to by her attorneys for their own benefit. So now we're going to get into the mess of Buzbee being shisty, okay? Mr. Carter made several court filings repeatedly detailing the falsity of Doe's claims as revealed by her stories, inconsistencies, and baselessness of various allegations. At each of these junctures, Doe was confronted with the false nature of her claim as well as the harm it was causing Mr. Carter. At any of these points, Doe could have withdrawn her lawsuit. Nevertheless, Doe continued to pursue her claim without regard to the harm it was causing or could cause Mr. Carter. She has now admitted that Mr. Carter did not assault her. Indeed, Buzbee, aware that Mr. Carter did not assault her, pushed her to make the false claim for money. Having already sent the false and defamatory demand letters, having filed the false and defamatory complaint, and having already set Doe up to give false and defamatory interview to NBC News, Buzbee, Fortney, and the Buzbee law firm were happy to perpetrate the lies and hold out hope for an unwarranted payment for them and Doe. Where are we at? Indeed, Buzbee went so far as to tell TMZ on December 10, 2024, already fully aware of the falsities of the allegations, having met with Doe in Houston, that Doe was not ruling out filing R-word charges against Mr. Carter, and that what happens next is up to my client. It's her case, and what she decides to do, you will find out in due course. However, the legal process got in the way of their scheme. Buzbee had signed the complaints, and this is where Buzbee is going to be subjected probably to some malpractice and possibly to getting his bar license under some investigation and possibly removed. Buzbee had signed the complaints in the action against Mr. Carter without being admitted to the bar of the United States District Court of the Southern District of New York as required. When the judge presiding over the case was advised of this fact, she issued an order dated January 28, 2025, requiring Buzbee to file proof of admission to the Southern District of New York on the docket. And remember, Jay-Z had filed asking for sanctions against Buzbee because he had not had himself admitted to be able to be practicing in the court. While you could be admitted to practice as an attorney in the court, in the state, you have to get a permission to practice in certain courts. And the district court is a certain court that they would need to get permission in. And Buzbee did not do it, although he had been filing multiple lawsuits in multiple courts in New York. He had not been admitted to this particular court he was filing in, and Jay-Z wanted sanctions. He did withdraw that motion without prejudice, I'm assuming after this stuff happened. So the very next day, on January 29, 2025, Buzbee applied for such admission. If you had been following the case, Buzbee had said he already applied for the admission, and he hadn't. So that's one thing that Jay-Z is pointing out. On February 13, 2025, one day before his deadline to file proof of admission in the Southern District New York court, Buzbee got the news that because he had already filed pleadings in the Southern District of New York without being admitted to the bar of that court in the case at issue here and in more than 20 others, his application for admission had been denied. He was also instructed to attach a copy of the denial order to any subsequent application for admission in any particular case. So he was denied. He cannot practice in the court that he was filing complaints in and that Jane Doe's complaint was filed in. That's bad. The case cannot go forward with him. It cannot go forward with him. Faced with his inability to comply with the judge's order in the case against Mr. Carter and facing the threat of punishment by the court, Buzbee dispatched Fortney to Alabama to meet with Doe the same day, namely February 13, 2025. How do you know all of this? How does Jay-Z know all of this information? During that meeting, Fortney falsely and maliciously and manipulatively how does he know the information? I can't even read. During that meeting, Fortney falsely, maliciously, and manipulatively told Doe that the case against Mr. Carter needed to be dismissed as Mr. Carter had made threats against Doe's life and it was too dangerous to continue with the case. Of course, no such threats had ever been made. Who gave him this information? Is that part of the recording that he has of this plaintiff? Rather, Buzbee and Fortney were desperate to withdraw the false case or face punishment in court for their actions in filing false pleadings without Buzbee even being admitted in the Southern District of New York, jeopardizing their ability to continue with the more than 20 other cases they had pending in the Southern District of New York. So I'm assuming we're going to see a lot of these Buzbee's lawsuits being withdrawn because he can't practice in the court. He cannot practice in the court, so he cannot go forward. So that also explains why Jay-Z withdrew his motion for sanctions, because the court cannot sanction him because he was not eligible to practice in the court. Again, facing some malpractice and potentially he might get his bar license removed in New York. Oh my gosh. Buzbee. Do I feel bad for him? No, I don't. Thus, on the evening of Friday, February 14th, 2025, Doe quietly filed her voluntary dismissal with prejudice. Oh my gosh, I thought they had talked and they was like, oh no, the statute doesn't go. But it's really Buzbee's about to get in trouble. Buzbee is about to get in trouble. But the threats and extortion did not end with the dismissal of Doe's fraudulent lawsuit. Rather, on Friday, February 28, 2025, after Doe admitted all the foregoing and after Buzbee became aware of those admissions, a prominent New York attorney serving as Buzbee's and Fortney's co-counsel called an attorney for Mr. Carter. During that call, Buzbee and Fortney's New York co-counsel threatened that if Mr. Carter's attorneys filed anything in Mr. Carter's pending extortion and defamation case in California against Buzbee related to the statements made by Doe fully exculpating Mr. Carter and inculpating her and Buzbee for extortion and conspiracy, that Buzbee would issue a public statement by Doe that she was being harassed by Mr. Carter's people since she dropped the lawsuit, and dropped the lawsuit only because she was afraid for her life, and that the allegations against Mr. Carter in the drop lawsuit were all true. Even if she's going to say that everything was true, she's not going forward with the lawsuit. So no one's really going to believe her. They're not going to believe her. They're not going to believe her. Anyways, let's finish this up. Of course, Doe's allegations about being harassed by Mr. Carter's people since has dropped the lawsuit and about her. Of course, Doe's allegations about being harassed by Mr. Carter's people since she dropped the lawsuit and about her reason for dropping the lawsuit are and always were false. When Doe, Buzbee, and Fortney and their New York co-counsel said that said them they knew and could readily have discovered through any reasonable inquiry that the statements were false. Thus, the threat of extortion and further defamation continued to this day, necessitating that Mr. Carter take action to present unscrupulous actors from further preying on him. So he sues for malicious prosecution, like we talked about, filing this knowing that the allegations were false, allegedly, right? We also got abuse of the process. In order to get Jay-Z to pay up, they made these false claims and they knew that they were false. Civil conspiracy, they met together and said, we're going to file this lawsuit against Jay-Z. And then we got the defamation because Jane Doe made these statements during her NBC interviews, which are not protected by litigation privilege. Okay. So that is what we have, y'all. We don't have no comments coming from the Beehive. Y'all don't got no comments on anything that's happened here. I think it's crazy. Jay-Z is saying, let's see how much he's asking for. Doe's frivolous lawsuit filed by Buzbee, Fortney, and the Buzbee law firm, and its demonstrably false allegations that Mr. Carter S.A.'d her when she was a minor, caused Mr. Carter to suffer actual and special damages, including but not limited to harm to his personal and professional reputation, harm to his business entity, Roc Nation, which resulted in his business suffering substantial losses in excess of $20 million, out-of-pocket loss, and emotional harm, humiliation, and harassment. I wonder how much he spent on attorney's fees. He doesn't tell us about that. $20 million is what he is saying he lost from this lawsuit. Isn't that crazy? $20 million. We know Jane Doe don't have it. She don't have it. Buzbee might be able to pay it off over time. He has a big law firm. It's a mess. It's a mess. Y'all not letting me know what y'all think. I think, well, let's go ahead and go to the poll, actually. Let's look at the poll. Should Jay-Z let the lawsuit go? 11% said yes, he needs to move on already. 56% says no, he needs to clear his name. And 33% says, I don't care, the drama is juicy. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll right there. Now, I'm in between. I guess it's more like I don't care, but I mean, I cover these kind of cases online, so I guess it makes for good content. But it's almost like let it go. But also, he still hasn't cleared his name. Just because they withdrew the lawsuit does not mean that he's innocent. And I think throwing those kind of allegations out there when most people, I'm saying most people because these are my beliefs, okay? My beliefs are that I don't put anything past any celebrity. Like if it wasn't her, would I believe it if somebody else came out and said it? Probably. And these allegations are already out there against him. And what? He has like 11, 12-year-old daughter right now. So imagine what her friends are saying. So the only thing he can really do is try to get a public admission that she was lying. And him saying that he has this recording is him trying to put this in there that it was a public admission that he was, or that she was lying and that he did not do these things. Now, does it mean that he hasn't done these things to other people? No, but at least no one else is suing him or claiming that he did do these things to other people. So I definitely understand with him being a celebrity, if it's hurting his pockets $20 million, yeah, he's the billionaire or not, he is going to try to clear his name. So on a personal level, I definitely understand it. On a celebrity drama level, it's like, okay, like your $20 million is what, a pennies to you, sir. Just move on. It didn't go forward. I think you're drawing a little bit more attention to it. You're out of the lawsuit limelight, but you're kind of drawing more attention to yourself by filing another lawsuit. You could have just finished it in the California lawsuit. So asking for attorney's fees, definitely understand why he's doing it. Basically recoup the money that he has spent. It's been a waste of money for him just for them to withdraw it with prejudice. So they can't even bring it back. So he definitely wasted money, and he probably wants that money back. Just because people are rich does not mean they have money just to flail around and give away to people and not need it back. So y'all let me know what y'all think on the replay crew down in the comments. Thank you for everyone that watched live. We will be back live streaming on next Tuesday. Hopefully, I should be back live streaming next Tuesday. Don't know what we're going to cover yet, but we will be back. I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Thank you all for joining me live, and I will see y'all all on the next live stream. Bye.